Welcome to our Backyard Brothers podcast. We have a full accompaniment of personas here. We have five of us here today for the first time. We've had guests before, but it's usually been four. We've never had five on this podcast at the same time. So this is a record for us. Also, happy October. um, October is the best sports month, and I'll tell you why in just right now. It is the only month of the whole year that all three major sports are playing at the same time. Um, you can later on this month you can watch World Series game, a tip-off week for NBA, and a mid-season NFL game on the same day. It's the only month of the year you can do watch all three major sports. So that's why it's the best sports month of the year. So, in my opinion, but and with that introduction, we're going to be talking about all three major sports today if we get to all three of them. So, I mean, that's relevant. But Bob is here today to talk about baseball because baseball playoffs have started and have had some surprises in the wild card round as well. And so
One or two.
we'll talk about those as we get there. Starting with a memory from Cody, though.
Yeah. So it was a memory of mine that I was just thinking of earlier today, and even had some help from my wife on thinking about a memory. I was kind of stuck for a little bit and busy thinking of other things, and she reminded me of this memory that I had thought was so cool. It was about 3 years ago now. I think it was 2021. I think maybe even 2020. I'm not sure. But the memory I chose is Seattle Seahawks, DK Metcalf. They're playing the Cardinals. This is when Russell Wilson was still quarterback. And Seattle was down on I think it was like the 5 or 6 yard line, somewhere near the end zone. And was throwing a pass to, I don't remember who it was, maybe been the running back or Tyler Lockett, one of those. But he threw a pass. He looked open at first. But of course, Budda Baker, probably one of the best safeties in the NFL, sees it like a hawk, comes running and picks it off, and he has, I mean, green pastures of land just to run a pick six all the way back. It would have been a 99 yard pick six, I think it was, what would have been. But DK Metcalf turns on this sprinting wheels and runs from the end zone and chases Budda Baker down. These are two grown men running as fast as they can, and Budda Baker is still able to have closing speed and chase down Budda Baker and tackle him about the 7 or 5 yard line on the opposite side, which then went on where Seattle was able to stop them from scoring a touchdown. They got a field goal only. So that play was pivotal in that game. But it was just amazing, mesmerizing, watching, not just as a fan, but as a football fan in general, someone that just that much of a freak athlete be able to do something like that. And So I guess I wanted to talk about that. Maybe other instances that you've seen, whether it's in football or sports, where someone just does something just ridiculous, crazy, something that you may think they might require, some PED testing at that point or something like that. But I'll turn it over to you guys about that memory or anything similar to that.
Great memory. I remember watching that. I think I might have watched it live. I think that the greatest reaction I have to it is it's so easy, I think, as a wide receiver when your quarterback throws a pick in the end zone, that for you just throw up your hands and just say, ugh, whatever. But instead, he chased him down. He put on the speed and was able to go down there. And I think that the Cardinals did not end up scoring a touchdown, if I remember right, that it ended up saving the touchdown. Cody, your other question of other great feats of speed or great athleticism. I remember, I guess I don't remember, I wasn't alive yet, but you can see highlights of Michael Jordan when playing for UNC, tried to block a shot and hit his head on the backboard. And just, just this incredible athleticism to get so high up there. And some of the things like that, they're just some true freaks in the world. DK Metcalf, one of them. And there's, others in every sport.
Cody, when you picked this memory, I remember when that happened. They did that whole sports science thing on what that took for DK to do that, and so I found that and I pulled it up, and so here's some numbers for you. DK Metcalf covered over 108 yards of running on that play to chase him down, and he reached a top speed of 22.6 miles per hour on that. That's insanely fast. Like obviously when we're driving cars and speed limit 25 is one thing, but can you imagine running the speed limit of a residential street for 100 for 300 feet straight, or getting to that top speed? They compared the whole tackles for the whole season. That was the second fastest speed of any player and any play of that whole season. Tyreek Hill was the fastest at one point as a wide receiver, but that was the fastest, or second fastest of that. And the fact that I mean, you don't know what's going to come of it. Maybe he catches them and the Cardinals score a touchdown the next play. But that wasn't what DK Metcalf was thinking of. That was stopping that play right there, showing that dedication to that play. And then it so happened that they couldn't score a touchdown. I don't even know if they got a field goal. I thought they went for a fourth down and didn't get that either. So, but that was really, really impressive. And it ended up being a pretty huge play in the game that the Seahawks won. Anyone else?
Nancy or Bob, the other one.
I'll jump in. So, yeah, I was waiting on Robert. I didn't want to jump over him or anything. Do I call you Bob or Robert?
Bob is fine.
Okay, I didn't want to, you know what I mean? People call me Yancey, so I just want to make sure I'm getting it right. What I thought about the memory was just to share thoughts with you guys similarly. I thought the fact that he was able to, it looked like he had 15 yards on DK before DK gets into the picture and actually, looks like he might be able to get a tackle. And just that kind of comeback speed you don't see in everyday athletes, period. It takes an elite guy to do something like that. And to add another freak athlete, since we were kind of picking on to add to the memory, I would say Ben Wallace. When he had that one side block to the other side of the rim block, I can't exactly, Dustin, I see you nodding. I can't remember who he was playing against, who he got that block against, but you know the memory I'm talking about, right? I mean, he just beats it against the backboard, swaps sides, beats it against the other. And that was another one of those, whoa, like this dude can just do something different than other people. And that's, I would put in my mind, that's what I would say is comparable, even though it wasn't a speed thing, just the effort that it took to make that play, even if it's not getting you a touchdown, it's just preventing the other team from scoring and putting your team in a better position. And yeah, that's what I would go with.
I think about the LeBron James chase down block in the NBA Finals as well.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Bob?
Oh man, there were a couple of very old school memories that popped up. One, the Ben Wallace one, made me think of watching Georgetown play when Patrick Ewing was a freshman, and John Thompson told him, "I don't care about the goaltending, just go out and establish yourself." And he put like the first 5 North Carolina shots into the seats, and just and several of them were called for goaltending, which was fine. But this was a freshman kid just announcing his presence, and that was a tremendous game. The chase down makes me think of Don Beebe running down Leon Lett, and that's always one of my favorite plays to go back and watch. So those are the two, but those are really, really old school, which is, that's why you see all the gray on here.
All right. Yeah, that's good. All right, let's talk about football for a minute. We're not going to talk about football much today, other than that that memory and right now. So everyone, if you have 1 or 2 sentences, we don't have to respond to them unless it goes to what you want to say, but just 1 or 2 minutes or 1 or 2 sentences, sorry, about either college football or the NFL that you want to talk about this week. So, in no particular order, if you have something to say, go for it.
I'll pop in with saying that I was surprised Georgia underperformed the way that they did against Alabama. I think everybody was. Alabama is a great team no matter what, but I expected Georgia to do more, and they were just caught on their heels and could not get any momentum back. That was what I took away from college football personally this week watching that game. Even I was kind of like, man, I didn't think it was going to be this bad.
Yeah. Like I put that I found from Annie. She said, "Man, I haven't seen Bulldogs get beat like that since Michael Vick." So.
Rough.
I guess I mean, there's just so much I could do, but I'll just go with. I was looking at BYU recently, and looking at their plays, and their defense is phenomenal right now. I was looking at their schedule, and they actually really have a pretty favorable schedule the rest of the year, in my opinion. So I was realizing the possibility of BYU being maybe a one-loss team or even undefeated, which is kind of crazy to think about right now, but one-loss team is pretty realistic in my opinion for BYU, and that's just completely outside of the expectations before the season began. So that's just, I guess, maybe what I'm saying is everyone should probably keep eyes on BYU right now.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to mention was Jaden Daniels is just remarkable. You don't see a rookie quarterback play like this often. And you look at his completion percentage, he's throwing 84% completion through 4 games. You don't see that from Patrick Mahomes. You don't see that from anyone. And you could say, he's just throwing dink and dunks, but he's not. He's throwing like 30 yards down the field for touchdowns and right on the money. And you got to credit. It's been a while since I've said credit Cliff Kingsbury, because he really struggled with the Cardinals, but he has set that team up excellently for offensive success. He's learned a lot from his problems with Arizona. He's relying on the run game a lot more than he ever did with the Cardinals, and he's got that team really humming along offensively. And they until they punted once in game 4. Before that, they hadn't punted since game 1. Since week 1, they hadn't punted at all. They had 18 straight scoring possessions, 18 straight possessions that they scored on, and that's getting some kneel downs out of the way. But the Commanders, and I think they're the biggest surprise of the NFL right now, that, hey, this team has a realistic chance, if they continue the way that they're going, to win the NFC East and to be a contender.
Talking about rookie quarterbacks, Bo Nix, I think his first half stats that he completed 7 passes for -7 yards in like the first half of the game. That somehow he threw just as many passes as the negative yard. It was just the weirdest stat ever, and so he's really struggling. Will Levis was also really struggling with Tennessee. Really I had a buddy who's a Titans fan, and I asked him, I said, "Oh, how do you feel about that injury to Levis?" And he said, "Best thing that ever happened to him."
Uh-huh. It's almost impossible to think what Bo Nix did. You can't really do that without trying. He was -7 yards to 5 different receivers. Like it wasn't one guy that caught like something and went for -20 yards. It was 5 different guys that caught negative yardage.
And yet they won the game.
And they won the game. So
Lulling them to sleep, baby. They're not ready for that rope-a-dope from the Broncos.
Right. It's the art of war attack where they don't expect you. Where they don't expect you is behind you.
Yeah, there you go. Kick the ball around until they realize it isn't soccer, and then we'll pass for a touchdown.
We'll talk about analytics later. Maybe that's the next step. So, yeah. Bob, you have anything? You don't need to, but.
No, I'll just throw in real quickly one conversation I thought was interesting. it had to do with quarterbacks getting, sometimes second and third chances. And, that a couple of the main examples that they were looking at were, somebody like Sam Darnold in Minnesota and Baker Mayfield and so forth. Interesting what happens when you get, certain people in the right situation. There are some quarterbacks, I know a lot of people are way down on, Bryce Young right now and so forth. So it's interesting to see what happens, when people do get the right opportunities. So you kind of hope for some of these guys who, are, getting a rough deal, multiple coaches, multiple coordinators, situations where they're expected to succeed right away without having the team around them built up. So, you just file it under, you never know.
And it's so interesting because obviously when you're the best quarterback, you usually go to a really bad team, and so you have to be above the trash that's on that team to really succeed within a first year. And sometimes that's the situation is better than that, but usually you're the best guy. Okay, you get to go to the worst team. Good luck. So, yeah. And then so you get those second chances. That's a good point. Okay, we had two legends in the sports world die this week, and wanted to just talk briefly about them. And Bob, you're our baseball guy, so Pete Rose is one of those. Do you have any thoughts about Pete Rose? And
he's one I have really struggled with because as a kid growing up, I really enjoyed and respected the Big Red Machine. And he was at the top of that lineup and really was a spark plug for them. I know, he did what he did. He's owned up to it. I think the ban, the way it came and when it came was justified. The Hall of Fame is a really interesting conversation right now. And, I'm really on the fence with this one because, based on what he did as a player, I don't think there's any question that he belongs. There's also no question that he earned the lifetime ban. You don't bet on your own sport. You don't bet on your own team. Just stay away from that kind of stuff. But I have to think, though, with respect to the Hall of Fame, as much as I think he goes in as a player, and maybe his plaque addresses the lifetime ban, but I think there are other cases, and Shoeless Joe Jackson certainly being one of them, where the case against him is a lot flimsier than it was against Pete Rose. If you're going to start going back and doing that kind of cleanup, there are a few other cases you have to deal with before you get to Pete. So if he gets in, if it were up to me, I would say, let him get in, but mention the ban on the plaque, or do some kind of a black plaque, or a special wing or something. I don't know, but yeah, it was sad to see because I know that he's really been trying to, kind of fix things with Major League Baseball. He was, I think, very grateful when he got a chance to, have kind of a suspension of that for the All-Century team. I think that meant a lot to him. But it's sad that it could not get resolved in his lifetime.
yeah, and I wonder how. I mean, now that he's passed away, there's argument to be made that maybe now's okay. But there's also the question: is it a slap in the face that now that he's dead, that you immediately put him in the Hall of Fame? And so there's a couple of of things that I'm wrestling with, and I'm kind of with you that something needs to be done, and it needs to be distinguished that he he made some mistakes that prevented him from getting in the Hall of Fame, and maybe there's something that can be done that distinguishes that. Yes, he made it to the Hall of Fame, but he also made these mistakes that prevented his. I mean, the same thing with Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa and all those that were on steroids for a while and got it. And so you got to think about that. Are they going to get in after they die too, or where's the kind of line there? So
Yeah, and I just don't see anything happening soon. I don't think Rob Manfred wants to touch it at all.
Yeah.
It's it's a really unsavory topic, and it makes it worse because you probably have had a couple people sneak in, who were never caught, but who definitely have skeletons in the closet. Not naming names, but but how you go back and you clean all of that up. It's a rough one. I don't think there's any precedent for removing somebody from a Hall of Fame in any sport. So, are you going to go out and set that precedent? I don't think he wants to touch that.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone?
I heard a statistic about Pete Rose so the Cincinnati Reds are one of the oldest teams in baseball, right? And Pete Rose is responsible for a disproportionately large amount of runs of the entire Cincinnati Reds franchise. That, him playing there for, close to 20 years is responsible for a huge percentage of the total runs that Cincinnati Reds have ever hit. I can't remember the exact statistics, but I thought that was a pretty cool one that someone told me.
Well, and he had some monsters hitting behind him too. He had Morgan hitting 2, Bench and Foster and Tony Perez. Tony Perez was an RBI machine. So for him to be able to get on in front of that kind of lineup, yeah, you're going to score and score often.
When I showed my girl Pete Rose, she was like, "Steve Martin played baseball." So shout out to my girl for that.
Good one.
Yeah. Okay. The other legend who Cody, did you have anything?
No.
Okay. The other legend who passed away, another Georgetown alum, by the way. We talked about Patrick Ewing, Dikembe Mutombo, the 7'2" monster that passed away. Dustin, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. This one was a sad one for me. He died of brain cancer this past week, 58 years old. You said Georgetown legend. He was one. He's from the Democratic Republic of the Congo and did not have much interest in sports or basketball, and decided to take up basketball when he was 16 years old in order to get into college, because his dream was to become a doctor. And then John Thompson saw him and said, "Nope, you're playing basketball for me." And so he brought him over, and he was obviously a fantastic basketball player and went on to the NBA and had a Hall of Fame career. Absolutely one of the greatest defensive players to ever play in the NBA. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year winner, 8-time All-Star, and in the Hall of Fame. And I think outside of that, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, released a statement, talking about how, his nickname was Mount Mutombo, but he was a mountain in the humanitarian efforts of his post-career life, and has established dozens and dozens of schools and hospitals all throughout Africa, and has made a fantastic impact on Africa and the world in general with his humanitarian work. And so a legend, literal giant of a man that did some great things, and the NBA world is sad to say goodbye to him this week.
Way to shine the light on the person. When I got that text, my first thought was, No. I didn't want to text it. I felt like it was too soon. I waited a couple days. Yeah, I mean, one of the most exciting defensive players to watch, obviously, was Mutombo. His time, I believe, with the Hawks. Yeah, he was dominant throughout the league for I mean, a good run. I would say 4 or 5 years at least. He was the top of the top, and that's probably on the low end. But that he was just an incredible basketball player, fun to watch. And if you're growing up with a defensive mindset, definitely somebody to watch and learn from as far as basketball goes, for sure. And he'll be missed. And a way to shine the light on the person, Dustin.
Yeah. Cody, go ahead, and then I'll go.
Okay, yeah, just something really quick. When I heard about that, I vaguely recognized the name. You guys all know I'm not hugely into basketball, but I recognize the name a little bit. And I was talking to my dad about it. I'm like, why? I recognize this name. I recognize it a little bit. Why does it sound so familiar? And my dad just said the finger wag, and I was like, oh, okay, I know exactly what you're talking about now, and I can see it everywhere in my mind, like the finger wag. And so, it's for someone who doesn't watch basketball on a daily basis, someone who can maybe be called a casual fan. I know exactly who that was because of what the finger wag of who this was. And so he's definitely a mountain of a man, as you said, literally and figuratively. Great person, great basketball player, and he will be missed. Died young, 58 was he? I think 58.
Yeah.
So and I find it it's sad, but also interesting that someone who wanted to be a doctor died of brain cancer. That's something that it's just kind of interesting to me that, had he gone that way, in what ways may he have contributed to that kind of field? It's just a question I wonder.
Yeah. You guys have said most of it, and so the only thing I'll mention is he was a Hall of Famer 5 years to the day that he retired. Essentially, he was inducted to the Hall of Fame 5 years after his career ended, which is the minimum that you have to wait. He is one of those players, the all-time greats that never wanted a championship. And so you kind of think about those guys. He did go to 3 NBA finals, one with the 76ers, 2 with the Nets, in consecutive years, like 3 straight NBA finals, and he lost them all. So he was he was a great player. Those who play 2K love to play with him. He's a lockdown defender, blocking shots that go out into the stands. They're a lot of fun to. I wish they would do the animation, the finger wag, but they're not doing that. But anyway, yeah, great player. And like you mentioned, Dustin, and I thought it was really good. The great person behind that really was interested in humanitarian affairs beyond that. Anything from you, Bob?
He came along after my NBA fandom, so I certainly was aware of him. I certainly was aware that he had a positive impact. But other than that, no, I'm good.
Okay, we're in our baseball portion, so I'll turn it over to you guys in a second. But so we've mostly finished the wild card round. The wild card round is a little bit different, where you have to win 2 of 3 games in order to advance, and all but one of those series did that. We have one game going on right now. The Brewers are leading the Mets 2-0 right now in Milwaukee, trying to finish that off. The other wild card rounds all ended last night, at least. And so wanted to just talk about those wild card rounds first of all. Most of us had the Braves and the Orioles and the Astros in some kind of combination getting near the end of the World Series, and all 3 of those teams lost in the wild card round. So let's turn it over to you, Bob, for a second to talk about those 3 games and those 3 teams, at least in whatever order you want to go in. I seem to be frozen.
least surprised about Atlanta, to be honest. Every team has injuries, but the injuries that they had were really crippling. Spencer Strider missed most of the season. Austin Riley missed most of the season. Ronald Acuna Jr. And then when, Chris Sale had an amazing season for them, won the pitching Triple Crown in the National League, but when he was injured and not able to answer, still there?
Still here. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just lost the picture of it.
What happened?
Oh, okay.
What are you doing, Scott?
What am I doing?
So, but anyway, yeah, once Chris Sale was injured and couldn't answer the bell for the playoffs, they were just on fumes. And so not surprised. San Diego is on a roll. Anytime you go in and you clinch a playoff spot by turning a triple play, you've got something working for you. So least surprised about Atlanta. Most surprised probably by Baltimore. I kind of expected more from them, but maybe it was more because I underestimated Kansas City than, I overestimated Baltimore. Houston was also something of a surprise. They had a horrible start to the year. I think 40 games into the season, they were already 10 games back, but they played themselves back into it, and not just back into playoffs, but they won the division. So thought maybe they were, finding some answers and getting on a roll, and they ran into a Detroit that's kind of like, San Diego, playing themselves into it, kind of hitting a hot streak at just the right time. And so, yeah, but it was fun to see, a lot of the chalk disappear in the first, in the wild card round. And, props to the American League Central, welcome to Major League Baseball. They still have 3 teams going, and, and they are, there's a lot of youth there, a lot of talent, and they're going to be, that's going to be a good division, I think, for a while now. And that doesn't even count Minnesota, who had mostly a good year, but collapsed at the very end. Detroit was able to leapfrog them. So there's some good teams in the American League Central going forward.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to jump off real quick to try and fix my internet issues that I've been having. But I assume, did we talk about those 3 teams, all of them? Okay.
Oh,
great. So, yeah.
Please don't ask me to say it again, because I don't think I could.
No, I heard the first and the last. I was like, we're making sure we cover the other one. But yeah, and so the other one that's going on right now is that Brewers and Mets game. But yeah, so I think all of us are out as far as our World Series predictions, because most of us had Orioles versus Braves. We had Yankees, I think, in one, which could play. We had Dodgers, I think, in a little bit. So those 2 could still play, the Dodgers versus Yankees. But so let's, other than the matchup that's going on right now, to kind of get that last matchup in, our division rounds include the Tigers, who finally won a playoff game, and for last playoff series for years and years and years, that Detroit sports world is starting to really gain traction after the Lions. Now the Tigers are up there, but the Tigers have to take on the Guardians, who have been kind of a surprise this year, how good they've been. So Tigers and Guardians, what do we think about that series? It's a divisional rivalry for the playoff round.
Yeah, Detroit playoff wins are spreading like some type of waterborne illness.
Oh boy, yeah. I'm not touching that one. So
Somebody must have fixed the Flint and water. They're getting championship teams now.
yeah,
Yeah, and actually, if you look at August and September, Detroit has been playing at a better than 640 clip. They've been what I think it was like 34-19 for August to September, and not quite sure how they're doing it, to be honest with you. They have the absolute front runner for AL Cy Young, Tarek Skubal. Just like Chris Sale in the National League, Skubal won the pitching Triple Crown in the American League. So he's the leader in the clubhouse as far as the Cy Young Award is concerned. After him, I'm not sure what you have. They got through the series against Houston with a quality start from Skubal, and then game 2 was completely by committee. I don't think anybody pitched more than 2 innings in that game, and they just threw one arm after another, which will get you through a best of 3. Much harder to do that in a best of 5 or a best of 7. So I definitely see some challenges there, but they basically played Cleveland even up. Cleveland won the season series 7-6, but they haven't played in a while, and they definitely have not played since Detroit got hot. Cleveland has a pretty good team, crazy good bullpen, and because I was inclined at first to pick Cleveland because it would be hard for Detroit to hide their pitching issues, but I mean, the flip side is that Detroit's been doing it for the last 2 months anyway. So, if they found a way to do it, for August and September, why not October? I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to go against the chalk, and I'm going to say Detroit.
let's stay in the American League, and the rest of you guys jump in. I'm inclined to still stay on the Cleveland train. As much as I'd like Detroit to win that one, Cleveland's been playing really, really well, and so yeah, I'm on Cleveland's train, but it could. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 6, maybe even 7. But
No.
yeah. Let me know if anyone else wants to jump in there. But
I know little to nothing about baseball, but I would go with Cleveland over Detroit just because Detroit, ain't making no cars there now. So
yeah,
and it's actually going to be this round is going to be a best of 5. So
5. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So
In that case, I would definitely think it would be going at least 4 or 5. So that's Let's stay in the American League. The Yankees, the best team in the American League, as some of us thought would be the case anyway from the very beginning of the season, and they're the best record in the American League at least, and they're taking on maybe the surprise of this whole playoffs, the Royals. I think Cody, way back when, at the beginning of the season, Cody said, "I'm feeling something about the Royals," and we kind of made fun of you at that point. But you know what? The Royals are here, and it surprised everybody, maybe including Cody. But they're here, and they won the Wildcard Round as well, beating the. I lost my train of thought. Who did they beat? Orioles. They beat the Orioles. Yeah, which is pretty impressive as well. And so now they have to face off against the big New York. So do the Royals have a chance against the Yankees?
Yeah, because the things that kind of got them past Baltimore are good starting pitching, tight defense, and just enough offense. That the pitching only gave up 1 run against Baltimore, but the offense only scored 3. So, so there's some vulnerabilities there. The Yankees can throw a few good starters. I think Cole and Rodon are going in the first couple of games. So, and left-handers, like Rodon gave Kansas City a little bit of trouble over the years. So, and that Yankee lineup, Soto and Judge has had another monster year. I think there's nowhere near the firepower, I think, on Kansas City outside of Bobby Witt Jr., who is an amazing player and maybe even got past Juan Soto for the second best season in the league. So, he'll be exciting to watch, but I think overall, the Yankees have the bats to, outscore Kansas City. I think the Yankees win this one.
Yep, I'm on the Yankees, and I'm not too positive the Royals will even win a game. I'm kind of thinking of Yankees in 3 at this point. So
let's go Royals.
I gotta go against you, Cody. I'm betting the Yankees only because Aaron Judge won me $200 one time.
yeah.
Did he ever pay you back?
Yeah,
he loaned you.
I threw it on him that he was gonna get it was a parlay that somebody would like get a couple of bases and he would hit a homer and he hit a homer and the other guy got bases. It was like $200 for a $10 bet or something. I made out like a bandit that day.
Okay.
Very nice. By the way, looking at our preseason playoff predictions, World Series predictions at least, Bob, you're the only one of the 4 of us that's out completely. Sorry.
Of course. This is what I said earlier about, listen to my predictions and then decide we're stupid lies.
Yeah. You had the Orioles and Braves, and the Braves winning, and so the rest of us each have 1 in. I had the Astros losing to the Dodgers. So Dustin had the Orioles losing to the Dodgers, and so did Cody. And Yancey, I'm sure you had it perfect. You had the Yankees and the Dodgers, didn't you? So
yeah, I didn't fill anything out, so I would guess that I wouldn't have gotten any wrong. That was, if I was just guessing.
Right. Okay, let's go to the National League now. We have 1 game that's still undecided, but we'll talk about that in a second. We have the NL West battle. The Los Angeles Dodgers are the league's best team, 98 wins this season, and they're facing off against a really hot Padres team that won 93 of their own, and the Padres did enough to put away the Braves, swept the Braves 2-0, and they've looked really good. So this can be a really competitive series, or it can go all the Dodgers' way. But what are we thinking about this really exciting NL West matchup?
I think San Diego is on something of a roll. They have the pitching to. They've got 3 or 4 really solid starters that they could turn to. The Dodgers starting pitching, I would say, is more of a question mark than I remember it being in any year recently. They've had a lot of injuries as well. They have obviously they have a ridiculous lineup. It's really tough to go through, Betts or Ohtani and Betts and Freeman and not get nicked along the way. But I think San Diego has something going. And I don't know that the Dodger pitching can keep pace with the Dodger hitting. I am going to go out on a limb on this one. I'm going to say San Diego.
All right. Yet another heartbreak in LA. Yeah.
Good. I'll give a shout out here. So I work with a guy who played high school baseball, loves baseball, and his high school teammate helped the Padres get the win last night. Brian Hoeing came in, pitched a couple innings, and helped the Padres get a win. And so my buddy came into work this morning, super happy that one of his best friends was able to get a great win last night as a pitcher. And so I'll give a shout out there, Brian Hoeing.
I have a Dodgers connection, but it's a long time ago Dodgers connection. I actually went to school and played football with Don Mattingly's son. Preston Mattingly was his name, and so he was obviously a great baseball player. I think he's actually in the Dodgers organization right now, but Preston is. But I didn't play baseball. Preston also played football, and I was teammates with him in high school, and went up against him routinely because I played receiver, he played corner in practice all the time, and he was about 6 inches taller than me. And my best memory was catching a fade route on him, and so it was fun. Anyway, I have a connection with Don Mattingly at least. But so anyway, I want to agree with you, Bob. I want to say the Padres are gonna pull out that one, but my heart goes that way. My mind doesn't. I'm gonna say Dodgers in 5.
Yeah, I got to go LA too. I think LA has had more teams go further than the Padres have overall in history, right? I would assume, like you would think of the Dodgers as being a better team, like franchise-wise. I could be talking out of the backside. I'm not sure that this is factual, but I don't know a whole lot about the Padres in general, and that's where that sense comes from, and that's why I'm picking them. Is LA just a bigger name, I think, bigger franchise.
Yeah, and I feel that I do feel a little stupid picking against, like I said, Ohtani and Betts and Freeman. But I think over the course of a series, that for me the tipping factor is the Padres pitching. I think they go much deeper than the Dodgers do, and I think it'll be a good series. I think it's going to be really intensely fought. But I just think San Diego is going to pull it out at the end.
Let's talk about the last one right now. Literally the Brewers are, is it 1 out away from winning this game? So they're in the top of the 9th, up to nothing with no, there's no outs yet, but so they're 3 outs away from advancing. So
and the Mets just got the lead runner on. So.
Yeah, so could be an exciting top of the 9th there, but is there any way that whoever wins that game can either one of them beat the Phillies though?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think the Phillies pitching top to bottom in that rotation is as good as anybody else's in the playoffs right now. They've got their own lineup that when you've got Schwarber and Turner and Harper, and Alec Boehm has taken a huge step forward this year. JT Realmuto. There's just a lot going on with Philly right now, and they are as balanced, I think, as any team in the playoffs. So I'm whether it's Milwaukee or whether it's the Mets, Philly owns the series, for the year against both teams. So I just see Philly moving on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I would agree with that. Okay, so let's do the. We're just going to predict who's going to the World Series, who's winning it now, since pretty much our regular season is trash. So let's pick it now. Let's start. Let's see. Let's start. Bob, you're our guest. Why don't you start?
I'm saying Philly and New York, and I'm assuming it reaches that point. I say Philly outlasts the Yankees, and Philly gets the World Series win they've been trying for years now.
I'm just the way that it's written on my spreadsheet here. Dustin, you're next.
I think I'd agree with New York, just with the power they have there and that field that they have there. But Bob, I know you said you'd betting Padres against the Dodgers, but it's hard to bet against the Dodgers as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say New York and LA, that big matchup, of the two juggernauts there. But I'll agree with you.
Yancey, you're up next.
Concrete jungle, wet dream, tomato. New York, baby. Let's go.
Who from the National League? Where are we? Dodgers, Phillies,
LA.
Okay. Cody.
I'm gonna say Padres, San Diego, because I mean Bob, the expert, seems pretty confident of them in the next game, so I'm gonna go with the expert here a little bit. But Padres and then New York, Padres, Yankees, but New York wins it all.
Okay. And I'm last here. I don't see anyone, and apparently all of us agree, I don't see anyone out of the AL other than the Yankees going to the World Series. So I'm a sweep as far as the AL goes. Obviously, we have three different teams right now, and those are the three that I think have a chance: Phillies, Padres, Dodgers. And to me, Padres and Dodgers it's a bloodbath. They're gonna whoever wins that game is gonna come limping to go play the Phillies. And so I'm kind of with Bob that the Phillies win that by process of kind of attrition. And so, and I'm gonna, because Bob and I have the same teams, I'm just gonna go on the other side and say the Yankees beat the Phillies. So
one way or another, we pretty well have it covered. Somebody's going
That's
to have
right.
nice wins.
Somebody
Unless-
will get it right.
unless the Dodgers win, and then we're all screwed. But so
We're the Brewers.
or the Brewers, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we will check in on that every week as we go along, as well as I'm sure that game will end before we're done, and so we'll be able to really see and digest that, even if it's not over right now. Let's go check. Okay, we got one out, runners on the corners.
Yep.
So
And Pete Alonso is hitting. So if you want
okay.
if you want a little drama there, he can provide it. He's kind of due. He's had a rough string, rough string of games lately. So, but
You're welcome to butt in and get us a play-by-play as it happens.
Yeah.
all right. Well,
Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say if you're curious, the count right now is 2-1 on Alonso. So.
Okay. All right. I only had one PTI question because I know that we're going to run short today, and so, but I had been thinking recently about analytics. It's really been at the forefront of football innovation over the last decade plus. We've seen a lot of changes come in offensive philosophy over the last 10 years. I mean, you think about it, 10 years ago, almost every coach in football said pretty much you have 3 chances to get a first down. If you don't get it, we're punting it. Like that was the whole idea. And you would only go for it if you were down by a lot or it was in the fourth quarter or whatever. Other than that, punt it away. Don't even give a chance to the team to score. That has changed completely. Now, 4th and 3 or less, it's almost always go for it, unless you're at your own like 10-yard line. And that's been part of analytics. Analytics saying you have a better chance of winning the game if you convert this 4th down. And that's what the majority of coaches are now using to do that. In addition, deep passes was identified, and that's an obvious one. But deep passes was identified as if you the ability to make a huge play, 40 yards down the field completion, you need to try more of those, because the more of those you get, the more chances you have of scoring. Defenses have kind of come back to try to stop that. And so anyway, those are a couple of the newer or more recentish innovations that NFL coaches have made. And so my question is, in your minds, what is the next evolution of analytics that's going to maximize that offensive production in the NFL? Based on what you're seeing, what you may think, what do you feel is the next offensive scheme or philosophy that's going to take charge in the NFL? I do have a thought, but if you guys have any thoughts, I want to hear yours first, unless you want me to share mine first. So
I'll jump in. I was thinking about this question pretty deep. I was interested to see how you were talking about looking at whether or not they go for it on 4th downs, long plays versus like the run game, things of that nature. I think the next thing that coaches will look at, since we've seen a lot more of the younger style of offense, like the wide receiver step back pass or the double reverses and things like that, I think there will be a hyper intensive look at those kinds of trick plays, and then they'll decide whether to use more of those, or if they're really not netting the kind of gains that they're expecting from them, they just look fancy. And then, is it only getting me 15 yards when I'm expecting 30 because it looks like 30 yards traveled? Because it is, and I think we'll notice that some of those lesser used before trick plays will become used more often, and then the reverse for plays that you don't see too much, like the halfback pass. Like certain teams will start to use that more because of their skill sets and things like that. And that's kind of what I took from it, and what I thought we would see moving forward is kind of an analysis of trick plays, which ones to keep, which ones to scrap.
before we move on, I think we have some breaking news that Bob wants to share with us. So,
Remember that comment about, Pete Alonso, could provide a little bit of drama. 3-run homer.
yeah.
Oh, that'll do it.
So
That'll do it.
Mets are now leading 3-2, still batting in the top of the 9th.
Cool.
Anyone else? Dustin?
Yeah, I'll go real quick.
Or
Oh, I'm
Cody?
sorry, Dustin.
Either one.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I guess I'm thinking a little bit of, on a mindset of what's coming from college into the NFL kind of mindset. The best player in college football right now is without a doubt Travis Hunter. I think that kind of similar to what you're saying, Yancey, these trick kind of plays, these triple option type ideas, I would think that it's going to become a innovation of trying to get more capabilities, more skills in each player, throwing, running, passing, blocking, all of those, to basically have the option that the receiver can throw the ball just as well as a quarterback. Things that people aren't necessarily expecting, at least at the beginning. Things that make triple options so deadly. You put the ball in this person's hand, and he's throwing a beautiful dime just as fast as the starting quarterback would have to the other receiver, while the quarterback's blocking or something like that. These type of things that people would not nearly expect, and this is kind of offensive innovation that's going to tear these defenses apart. And so I think, kind of similar to what you're saying, a lot of these more, triple option trick kind of plays, but with a mix of trying to, farm, if you will, more Travis Hunter type players.
I like that.
Yeah, I had some similar thoughts to both you, Cody and Yancey, and that's I was calling it the RPO, the run pass option at the quarterback level. That's going to grow more and more, but you're going to see it more with specialized players. And a good example is you're never going to see an RPO with Jared Goff, right? That's just not, it's not going to happen, right? You see that with Lamar Jackson and other players. And so what's going to happen is the Detroit Lions or a team like that would have a quarterback on the roster whose job is to do the RPO. That Jared Goff would come sit on the sidelines for a play while this guy comes in and is able to run a play that's an RPO. And that's to mess up the defense in that way. And so we've seen that before with Wildcat and other things like that. We see it in New Orleans with Taysom Hill. But I think that's going to grow more, similar to what you say. The second thing I think we're going to see is the planned lateral. Going to see more of that. You're seeing that now. You've seen it a few times with the Chiefs. And then I think just this past week, a couple other teams did it, where they throw a pass across the middle and that receiver then throws it to the sideline to another player who's able to get another 10, 20 yards. I think you're going to see more designed laterals.
Yeah, Dustin, you and I should coach football together, because that was my thought. Your last point there. I think we're going to see an infusion of rugby into the NFL. I think we're going to start seeing that. We've seen it. Dustin, you mentioned the last couple of weeks, the Lions scored a touchdown on one 2 weeks ago, I think, when I think it was Amon-Ra St. Brown caught it and then lateraled it as it was a hook and ladder, a la Boise State from 07, where the Lions receiver scored a touchdown on that. And then we saw just this last week, the Patriots executed it perfectly, except there was a penalty. It was like a holding across the field, a horrible call, or not horrible call, but a horrible thing to do when he didn't have anything to do with the play. The Patriots caught one and then like in the middle of the field and then lateraled it to the side of the field where a guy was wide open and gained another 30 yards. We're going to see, I think we're going to see rugby come into the NFL in that way. But that's teaching offensive linemen to pass the ball as well. And so how much do you value your practice time, and is it worth it to take your offensive lineman away from pass blocking for a pass plays, a couple here and there? I think we're going to see it though with the 49ers. I think against the Rams 2 weeks ago, they almost scored on a what they call it, like a pitchy woo woo play at the end, where they kick it off and then they lateral it a bunch of times. The 49ers had a perfect play set up, except the offensive lineman couldn't make the last throw. If he made it to Jawan Jennings was scoring a touchdown on that kick return. And so the 49ers had it set up, except the offensive lineman couldn't figure out how to pass the ball. And so, but I think that kind of rugby infusion is coming to the NFL, and we're going to see it more. So.
Seattle just had that play as well. They just ran that play on Monday against Detroit, the one that Dustin, you were just talking about.
Yeah. Scott, you said, we should coach. There's the saying that great minds think alike, but fools differ. So we're hard or dumb, but we're doing it together. All four.
That's right.
Hey, we made wide receiver step back pass 15 years ago, so I think we would be good coaches. I was stoked to see that on the NFL.
Well, my again, going back to my high school football days, one of the big plays that I came in to run was a hook and ladder. Where I caught the ball and lateraled it to a teammate. We called it like 4 times throughout the season that I played the most, and it only worked once. But it did work. Where I caught the ball and lateraled it to my teammate Jeremy Hoffling. Shout out. But I caught it and lateraled it to him as he was coming across the middle or coming behind me. I got it about the 30-yard line, and he went all the way down, tackled at the 1-yard line, and we scored the next play. So it worked. But anyway, so I've been ahead of the game since 2006, right? So
I think, was it Randy Moss, Chris Carter had the sickest version of that?
Mm-hmm.
Randy caught it, pitched it to Chris Carter as he was running down the sideline.
I know
going
what you're
down
about,
as he was getting tackled.
Yeah. So okay, cool. Do you have any thoughts about those analytics?
I think we're going to see a return to the single wing. Yeah.
The whole power full house formation.
The power eye, absolutely.
Let the big boys earn that money.
There you go.
All right.
Fullbacks make a comeback.
Okay, we have 20 minutes, so we're going to start our NBA preview, and we're going to just see how long it takes us to get through one team and go from there. So the NBA season kicks off. That's a different way of thinking of it. Tips off about 3 weeks from today, I think, or yesterday maybe. Anyway, October 22nd, it tips off, and so we're going to be talking about NBA basketball each of the next 3 weeks. And so let me share my screen. And are you seeing my screen?
Yeah.
No.
Everyone says yes. Okay. So we're going in reverse order from last year. So starting with the Northwest Division, Denver Nuggets. Again, they won the championship 2 years ago. Last year, they actually had a better record. And they were first in turnovers forced, first in three-point percentage, first in blocks, first in steals. They led in a lot of categories. You can say that they actually had a better season than when they actually won the finals. Of course, Nikola Jokic won the MVP. We have one change here. Russell Westbrook comes over as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope leaves, so Westbrook takes his place. You can see some of the great scoring that goes on within these 5 players. All 5 would be averaging double figures if this continues, and that's a pretty serious rotation. And here's the depth. Really just Dario Saric coming over from the Warriors. The rest of these guys stay about the same, except for that rookie out of Dayton, Deron Holmes, coming out in the first round. 20 points, 9 rebounds a game. Really good player in college. Coaches stay the same. So all I want to hear from everyone is just how we think these additions will or subtractions in some cases will impact the team from what they did last year. So go ahead and jump in, whoever wants to talk.
Yeah, I can lead off here. I'm excited but nervous about the Russell Westbrook addition. I don't know exactly how it's going to play, especially when the Nuggets need buckets, they give Jamal Murray the ball and have him play ISO. That's been Westbrook's play call for 15 years, and so I it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. Westbrook at this point in his career, I think that he's going to make a extremely positive impact in 20 games and have a net 0 impact in the rest of them. So I think that's ultimately going to be, good for the Nuggets. But I don't think it's necessarily winning them the championship this year.
Yeah, there's not a lot to disagree with in Dustin's assessment there. I feel like a lot of the tread for Westbrook is gone and worn down. And hopefully we didn't pay too much for him as a Nuggets fan. I'm assuming we did because of his name. But I think that's kind of his star power is worn off for a couple of years now. Hopefully he can get in and fit in and play well as a role player. That would contribute greatly to Denver's success. But I don't think that's the way it's going to go. I think that him and Murray are going to cause more of a confusion than a success offensively, with both of them sharing such similarities in play type. Piggybacking off of what Dustin said. So I think that, honestly, he might not be that great of an addition. I would have rather just took a young guy who was going to play the role and get the ball where it needs to go. But I mean, it's still Russell Westbrook at the end of the day. So I hope that he plays well, but I think that the time of him playing up to his potential is over.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think we have to talk about Michael Malone, how great of an adjustments coach he is. He makes a lot of great adjustments, and I bet we'll see at some point him realize that, and Russell Westbrook will be the 6th man coming off the bench to replace Jamal Murray, so you can have those 2 players, and then Christian Brown here probably starts as that shooting guard. So that's a very real possibility. Bob and Cody, I'm going to give like 2 seconds pause to see if you have anything to say. I know neither one of you are huge NBA watchers or fans, but I don't want to shut you out either. So let me know if you have things to say about these teams.
Nope.
I know less about basketball than I do about baseball, so you're good to go.
Okay. Timberwolves, they were excellent last year. They first best defense in the NBA. They also first in 2-point percentage allowed, best field goal percentage allowed. They were really, really good on defense. They finished third in the Northwest, but then they toppled the Nuggets in that semifinal round, and then lost to the Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals. So you can think they have that set up. They just had a huge trade this last week. They traded Karl Anthony Towns in order to bring 2 guys over. One of them, Julius Randle, the All-Star from the Knicks. And so you see that's a big addition there if he's healthy to start the season, which right now we're unsure of. But 24 points, 9 rebounds alongside Anthony Edwards, who's now clearly the focal point of this team with Cat gone. So Anthony Edwards, he kind of had a coming out party 2 years ago, but showed out even more in the playoffs. He was phenomenal last year in the playoffs. And so taking over as the real focal point of the team, along with Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, 4-time defensive player of the year, including last year, shuts down the paint better than just about anyone. They also brought over Dante DiVincenzo in that trade with the Knicks. And so bringing a guy who shoots 40% from 3, scores 15 points a game to come off the bench. You get rid of Cat, but you bring over 2 really good players. And so is this a net positive or a net negative getting rid of Cat, Dustin and Yancey?
It's so 6 or 7 years ago, if you would have asked basically any NBA analyst what they thought, they would say Karl Anthony Towns is the future of the NBA. They would have said that right now, today, 2024-2025 season, Karl Anthony Towns would be the MVP. That hasn't happened. It hasn't been realized. Anthony Edwards is the shiny new toy in Minnesota. Everybody loves him, and now they're saying the same things about Anthony Edwards, saying, hey, 3-4 years from now, he's going to be the MVP. Could even be sooner. And so I'm a little bit worried about repeating these patterns. I'm not totally sold on Anthony Edwards having the type of season that makes me think he's gonna, having him improve on last season. I don't quite see it, but I think that this roster looks good. I think the roster looks better than it did last year even. I like the addition of Randall and especially of DiVincenzo to help them with their depth and their shooting. So I'm happy, and they did keep Naz Reid, right? Or did he? Okay.
Yeah.
That's who they keep, 6th man of the year, Naz Reid. So as long as they kept him, then I'm happy with the Timberwolves being in the Western Conference Finals again.
Yeah. And I would agree. And I said at our NBA review a few months ago that the Timberwolves are my pick to represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals. And after they made this trade, I'm even more convinced of that. I think this really helps them even more.
2 kids coming out of high school here, Leonard Miller and Dasheen Nix. That's interesting. I always want to talk about that. I know it's more common now in basketball to see kids coming out of high school. But for sure, it's something to talk about. I think I agree with you guys overall on your summary. I don't think that Towns was all that necessary for this team. When you have a Naz Reid, they're playing it the way he was, and I felt like Reid played better than Towns did in the later parts of the season. And I felt like he looked like he had a stronger presence, both on offense and on defense, both sides of the ball. He seemed to be just performing and trying a lot harder than I saw out of Cat, and it looked a lot like he was just disheartened at the end of the season, and you can't really have that, especially when you have all this hype behind a guy. And so I'm kind of on Dustin's team with that. I agree that that's a good pickup in Julius Randle. We don't really not losing too much when we lose Cat, and let's see how Edwards plays in the future. Yeah.
I think that's spot on. That's correct.
Cody, Bob, anything?
I think my only thought, real quick, is just noticing Joe Ingles is a new addition as well. I remember him being fantastic, at least on the Jazz. He's probably been to 15 other places now since then. But I remember him being fantastic. It looks like he's only doing 4.4 points a game. I just wonder if that's more he's getting old now, or if he's just not getting as much play time.
I personally think he wasn't used the way he should have been with the Magic, and maybe the Timberwolves will. You can see he shot 44% from three. Give him 8 opportunities to shoot a 3. So
guy looks like one of my shitty cousins, and he's only averaging 4.4. Who cares?
Yeah. So 4.4. If you turn that into miles per hour, that's like lightning speed for Joe Ingles. He's a slow old guy whose job is to shoot threes, and he does it great. And the Magic didn't know how to take advantage of that very well. I don't know how well they'll do it within Minnesota, but it's probably a better situation.
Yeah. We got to take a look at same coaching staff. Chris Finch in his 5th season. So, okay, we have time for a couple more, maybe just one more. We'll see. But the Thunder were the number 1 team in the Western Conference last year. That was a surprise for a lot of places. They were number 1 in 3-point percentage, almost shooting 40% as a team. Number 1 in turnovers forced, number 1 in blocks, number 1 in steals, 3rd in offense, 4th in defense. They were great all over the place, but ended up falling to Dallas in the semifinals round after sweeping the Pelicans. So something needed to change. And what did is they traded Yancey's favorite player, the Josh Giddey. They traded him to bring over Alex Caruso, who's was an all defensive performer last year, to kind of help that team, along with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's one of the MVP finalists, and Chet Holmgren, who was one of the Rookie of the Year finalists. And so a lot of really good players on this team. Looking over here, Isaiah Hartenstein also comes over from the Knicks to give them that guy that can play alongside Chet Holmgren, and he can shoot the 3 as well. A lot of rookies: Nikola Topic, Dylan Jones, and Jay Mitchell also joined the team. Same coaching staff. Dustin, Yancey, I know Dustin's itching about the Thunder, favorite team over there, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just iterate that you said his name wrong. It's Josh. Don't touch that kitty giddy. And then I'll pass it on to Dustin to talk about his team.
Yeah. I was really excited about both of these trades. Alex Caruso is one of my absolute favorite players to watch. He is a dog on defense. He is such a great defensive player, and so I think that the Thunder needed a defensive dog, and he's going to bring that. And then Isaiah Hartenstein had a fantastic season with the Knicks, and for him to come off the bench for the Thunder, I think is going to be fantastic to help shore up that defense, get points, rebounds, defense, all of that. I think it's going to be great. I think that, they need to look at, I think Coach Daigneault needs to just look at how they approached that playoff run, because it felt like they had this amazing team basketball. Then they got into the playoffs, specifically against the Mavericks, and just kind of said, okay, SGA, go win us the game. The rest of us will sit around and watch. Good luck. And so I hope that they're able to, with this new roster, take a look at that and say, okay, we need to figure out how to play better team ball, especially in those big moments in the playoffs. And I think they will. Thunder to the Western Conference Finals. It's going to be Thunder and Timberwolves.
I think this is a great team overall, and for every pedophile you get rid of, it ups your chance by 5% of winning a championship. That's just karmatic rule, okay? Ask the universe. I think that Holmgren has a lot of success. If you get him in the weight room, it would benefit him a lot, because some of those bigs are able to push him around a little bit. But offensively, he's a great weapon. And I think that this team did fill the spots that they needed in order to have success in the future, and got rid of the stuff that they needed to also. So that's it. That's all. I'll quit bashing people that try to have relationships with 16-year-olds now.
Yeah, every time Chet Holmgren's on the floor, I'm thinking his legs are going to snap every single time. He's just tiny little legs, and so. But yeah, this is a great team, and if they figure out how to play better as a team, like because like you said, Dustin, it was just Shea Gilgeous-Alexander go win the game, even though the Mavericks are going to send 3 guys D every time. So figuring that out a little bit more with Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso now, and a little bit better bench maybe too. So.
Yeah, isn't it incredible? You had the best team in the league, and then they had like 5 draft picks, right? This was really cool, really good work by the management team years ago to set this up.
Yeah. Okay. Portland Trailblazers. In a difference to the other 3, this team was not good. They were the worst in the league in assists, worst in 3-point percentage, second worst in overall offense. So we're talking about a really bad team here. They did bring over Denny Avdia from the Wizards. Not sure how great of an addition that really is. I mean, he scored 15 points a game, so that helps. Anthony Simons was great, but DeAndre Ayton wasn't exactly the impact that they thought he would be, especially on this team. But they did draft Donovan Clingan, if you remember, the UConn monster. 7'2", 280 pounds, 13 points, 2.5 blocks per game with the national champion UConn. And so how are they going to employ him? Is he going to sit behind DeAndre? Is he going to play alongside him? I'm projecting that he's going to kind of come off the bench for DeAndre. It's hard to see those 2 guys playing at the same time because they occupy the same space. But other than that, I think the Trailblazers are probably in for another tough season as they try to figure out how to use this team.
Yeah, you mentioned, Denny Avdia. What is it? Avdia.
Avdia.
15 points with the Wizards. Yeah, that was great. That was like a third of the total Wizards point. So yeah, he's a great addition. No, it's going to be another tough season to win more than 20 games.
Yeah. Anything, Yancey, Bob, Cody?
I don't see a ton of talent here. Anthony Simmons is probably the best guy on the team, and if he doesn't have other people to get the ball to, I just don't see it. I mean, Grant looks like he's doing what he can to help out, but it's just not enough, man. You need one more guy that can average you 20 to support those other crappy numbers, to be honest with you.
Trying to get a new assistant coach. Chauncey Billups in his 4th season has a bad record. Not sure how much longer he's going to be able to be there if he doesn't turn it around. But trying to get through the Northwest Division. The Utah Jazz, they weren't good last year in points, but they were probably better than most people expected, though. But they were the worst 3-point shooting team allowed, at least. Bad defense on that. Bad in turnovers. They averaged 16 turnovers a game. They were the worst defense in the NBA last year. So that needs to change. They draft Cody Williams. I think he was the 5th overall pick, something like that, out of Colorado. Really good 3-point shooter, really long player, athletic. Athletic beyond all reason, but kind of needs to figure out a little bit more. But he's probably going to start from day 1 at that 3. Lauri Markkanen, there were a lot of trade talks, but he's still there, so that's great for the Jazz. Colin Sexton, John Collins, and then bring over Kyle Filipowski, the rookie 2nd rounder that was probably a 1st-round talent. So that's a pretty good move there. And then a couple other additions. You still have Jordan Clarkson there, who's a great scorer off the bench. Same coaching staff. In 3 minutes, any thoughts, Dustin, Yancey, Cody, Bob, about the Jazz?
Their coach looks like an 80s villain. He's going to ski you down a mountain for some shit. You can just tell in his eyes.
I would say I was disappointed with the offseason moves of the Jazz. I expected them to do a few more things, and I felt like they're just playing the waiting game with all the draft picks that they have, and just kind of trying to hoping to find gold.
Especially in the Southwestern Conference, they did not do enough for me to think they're going to break into that top 10.
Yeah, I got to support that and just say there's not enough numbers there. We don't have any main scorer doing enough, putting enough on the board to where a supporting cast would even help these guys so far. Because Markkanen's good, but if he doesn't have anybody else, what what's he going to do? You know.
Anything, Bob or Cody, in the Jazz? Okay. We don't have time to pick this division, so we'll save that for next week. I'm going to stop share and go over. We have a final in Milwaukee. Bob, turn it over to you.
So the next round will be New York Mets going to play Philadelphia. Alonso's home run plus a RBI single with 2 outs, and the Mets win 4-2.
Yeah. So another divisional rivalry matchup between New York and Philly. So that should be fun. Again, we said we didn't think whoever won that game was going to beat the Phillies anyway, but now we know that it's the Mets that are going to lose to them. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Next week, we're covering more of the NBA preview. The division we couldn't cover, plus the 2 that we scheduled next week, and picking all 4 of those divisions. So a lot of basketball next week, but we'll have time for other things as well. So
24-17 Tampa Bay over Atlanta right now.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Is there